mic on? Is the mic on? Welcome, everyone. Okay, welcome everyone to our 2 o'clock session with Dr. Jennifer Schwirzer. We will be continuing the discussion about anxiety and depression recovery, but we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the other direction of suicidality, and I will leave that to her to continue that discussion. But before we get started, we're going to sing our theme song. Does anybody remember what page that's on? No, it's in 330, and we'll sing the first and the 5th verse. That's the last verse. Page 330 in your hymnal. 330. Okay, I want to hear you guys sing. Yeah, you guys back there, I want to hear you singing. Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to Thee. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of Thy love, at the impulse of Thy love. Take my love, my Lord, I pour at Thy feet its treasure store. Take myself and I will be ever only all for Thee, ever only all for Thee. Thank you, Becky, for playing with us. And I want to introduce Dr. Jennifer Schwirzer. She's our guest for this Mental Health Sabbath, and she has extensive experience in counseling. She is an extensive worldwide traveler in speaking, 16 books she's written. She's been on 2 networks. She is are you the president of Abide Ministry? She's the director of Abide Ministry. It's a very important ministry in the work that they do. And she will be speaking after our special feature. Becky will be sharing with us. So just enjoy. And then the next thing you will hear Dr. Schwirzer.
All my days I've been listen to her all day long. Let's just have a concert. No, I'm kidding. But that is so pretty, and my heart just melts when you sing. All right, so I want to do a little housekeeping. How are you guys? What are you doing way in the back like that? Can you please move up? I beg of thee. Move closer because we can have an intimate kind of thing and really connect with one another. I want to do a little bit of housekeeping, and then I want to get a group discussion going. This is part of the method to my madness, is getting people to give feedback and talk back. So please come forward if you could find it in your heart to do so. All right, so a little bit of housekeeping. I want to tell you about Abide Network, which is the mental health coaching and education ministry that the Lord has raised up, partly through me and partly through a number of other people. It's a team approach. Is that better? So a little bit of wardrobe malfunction going on. It's okay. All right, so can you get me that clipboard so that I can get people going? Are we good? We're okay? Are we good? We're good. So all you have to do to get to our website is put in abide.network. No .com, no .org, just abide.network. And it will open up an entire, thank you for coming out, it's great. It will open up an entire world of mental health resources to you. I want to tell you about a few of them. One of them is also a separate website, but you can access it through the Abide website, called JesusMeditations.org. Jesus Meditations were created during the pandemic by myself and a man named Neville Peter. How many of you know Neville Peter, who plays piano and sings? And he's the Christian Stevie Wonder because he has extensions and he's blind, just like Stevie Wonder. So he's a friend of mine and lives down the road from me. I can literally ride my bike to his house. During the pandemic, I knew that he did not have the wherewithal to support his family because he supports his family through touring and doing concerts. And he couldn't do that during the pandemic. So the Lord gave me the idea of putting together a series of audio meditations based on Scripture. Because, you know, we always talk about how New Age meditation is so dangerous and it's occultic and all this. The best defense is a good what? So we have to give people something better than what they have. So we had this idea of coming up with something better, maybe, than Eastern-based meditation. Why not meditate on Scripture? Because after all, the Bible says we should meditate on God's Word. Amen? So we worked on that during the pandemic. We put together 120 audio meditations. They start with a song, and I want to do this with you since we're covering different techniques and tools that we can use for mental health. I start out with a song that is designed to help slow and deepen people's breathing, like I was talking about this morning. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a small hole with your lips. You're going to breathe all the way out, then you're going to breathe in to the count of 6, hold for 2, and breathe out to the count of 8. And I will do it with you, and you will see. Oops, this is the wrong one. That's not right. All right, hang on a second. I'm sorry about this. Let's see if this is right. Sorry. Can you hear that? Can you hear? Okay. Breathe all the way out first. Small hole. Now breathe in. Very slow. Hold. And breathe out. Okay. You're going to breathe in again. Hold. Now breathe out. breathe in. Hold. Now breathe out. Breathe in. Hold. Now breathe out. And one more time. Breathe in. Hold. Breathe out. How do you feel? It's very calming, isn't it? So in these meditations, you do that breathing song first, and you're breathing along with it, and you're supposed to keep breathing real slow. And again, it activates that connection point in your brain that connects your cerebral cortex to your limbic system. In other words, it connects the thinking with the feeling. And that means that when I go through the devotion and when Neville sings the scripture song, you're gonna feel it. Very powerful. Very helpful exercise. Those are all free. Please take advantage. They were not free to make, but they're free for you to consume. So just go to jesusmeditations.org. We also do a number of workshops and trainings, including the one that I'm doing this weekend, parts of it. And then Abuse, Trauma, and Faith is a separate workshop. We do a training called Project Safe Church Training. Our goal is to end sexual abuse in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I know it's a big ask, but why not hitch your wagon to a star, amen? And really strive for what's ideal. We have two ways in which we work on this. We have a training, and we can do trainings in different places. And we also have a tool where people can report alleged abuse. We work with a lawyer. I'm a professional therapist, so we will work with the people that report to try to seek out justice if that's called for and work with the situation as it stands. We also have a coach training called the Abide Coach Training, where we teach people how to do mental health coaching. And I've been working on a series with Pastor David Asherick on the home. David and I decided a few years ago that the family was really important and really a God thing, and that it was being attacked from within and without. And we wanted to support the family, and so we're doing a series called Try This at Home. We started out with marriage, we're moving forward with dating now, and we want to do parenting, and we want to do sexuality, and he wants to do aging and dying, and I told him I'd be aged and dead by the time we got to that, but we'll see. I really want you guys to do, we have free telephone support groups using these books that I've written on faith-based approaches to mental health. And we have these books, we use these books for our free telephone support groups, but I also would really love it if we could get a book club started here where you would actually use these books. And so I want to get a mailing list going. Sign the mailing list if you are interested in the book club or if you just want to stay connected to me. So it's going to be your name, your email address, and your phone. And I promise I won't sell your information to any scammers. But go ahead and pass that around if you would, and we will let you know if there is, if we do get a group going with these books. It would be an excellent option for continuing your mental health journey. We also have a Friday night Bible study that we started during the pandemic, and it's continuing to this day. And we still have about 40 people showing up on a Friday night. It was more during the pandemic, but people have gotten busy again, so it's a little tough. But people still come, and you know why they come? It's because we developed a community. We love each other. We're like a family. So we have different speakers, and it's a great event. And that is on Zoom every Friday night. Okay, so I like to do giveaways. So I have several CDs. I used to sing. I've kind of lost my voice pretty much, but back in the days when I used to sing, I produced CDs. So I have a couple of them. One is an adult CD on the Passion Story. The second one is a children's CD on which my children sing. I have a book that I wrote called Finding My Way in Milwaukee, which is my personal testimony for guide-age kids. And then a book on women and their issues called Damsel Arise. So we'll start with the Damsel Arise book. I'm going to ask questions, and whoever comes closest to answering correctly gets the giveaway. Could we do a roving mic at some point, because we're going to have a discussion anyway? Okay, so just shout out the answer if you know it. Fresno is known as the capital, as what capital of the world?
Raisin.
Someone said it up here first. Said raisin. Was that you? Okay. Here you, what's your name? You have what? Oh, sure. All right, Joy, thank you. Excellent. She was the first one to say it, but several of you said it's the raisin capital of the world. Fresno is from the Spanish word for what? Who said that? Okay. It's Becky, right? Give that to Becky. She's smart as a whip and sings like an angel, so how do you like that? Okay, Fresno is hot, Fresno is flat, but Fresno loves blank, so how about that? No, Fresno is the blank capital of California.
Raisins.
What's that?
Raisins.
No. It's a food. It's the capital of California. What's that? No. No. In my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, I looked this all up on the web, so, you know. It's a food, but it's a food that certain people prepare. That's like sort of classic, okay, I'm going to give it away here, but Mexican.
Salsa?
Do you want the kids or do you want the Passion Story? Either one.
What is the Passion Story?
It's just beautiful music, meditative for kids.
Music for kids?
Yeah. Eeny meeny.
I know, I was kind of like showing the
Well,
kids.
yeah.
I'll do the kids.
All right. Very well then. All right. So Pastor Daniel, how do you say your last name, Pastor? Govea. Did I say that right? Govea has done a series of Bible studies on Bible doctrines. Number 10 is called the what? I know you know, but you can't guess. And don't look at your phone. Do not look at your phone. Number 10 is called the blank blank.
Even my own church.
Ah, my own people. All right, I'm going to give hints. You ready for a hint? What's that? No, but that's kind of close.
Spiritual warfare.
No? All right. If you're a Seventh-day Adventist, think Seventh-day Adventist. Close? No? It's 2 words. No? What's that? No? No? It's 2 words, and someone said that. No? Okay, I'll give you the first. I'll give you the first word. Good. The good. Did you preach this as a sermon, Pastor? No, you didn't preach it. No, you didn't preach it. You never preached it. Okay, it's just you just did it like in front of a camera. Okay, that's one. All right, so it's good, and then the word starts with a D. No. No. All right, I'll do charades for you. All right, so it's the good. Getting closer. Okay, what? Look at my expression. Okay, look, charades. Okay, ready? You got it. Can you hand that to her? It was The Good Disappointment. The Good Disappointment was the name of his. What's that? Sure. I'll give you information later if you remind me. All right, so I want to get some feedback from you. What do you remember from this weekend so far? And sister over here, what's your name, sweetheart? Your name with the mic. Beth? Pat has a microphone, so she will rush to your side.
And wait for the mic.
Yeah, because people can't hear you. So what has been meaningful or helpful to you so far from this weekend? They don't want me to step. Are you streaming this? They don't want me to go down here because the lighting is bad and I look terrible, I guess. But, you know, I like connecting. So talk to me. All right, all right. Come on.
He started with your story.
Yeah. Okay.
He started with your story.
Yeah. Okay. And you like that?
Loved it.
Okay, good, good. All right. They overcame him by the word of their testimony. Yeah, Jacqueline.
What I remembered is this, and I'm looking because a friend didn't want to go to this women's thing today, and she's like, she was talking very down about things at home, and I said, so why do you want to stay at home instead of going somewhere where you can get some help and be possibly uplifted? And I said, last night the speaker said, and I said to her, last night the speaker said, Dr. Jennifer shared under the topic of avoidance, when we just don't feel like doing something, we tell ourselves, I'm going to do it anyway because it's the right thing to do. And this is called beta motivation.
All right.
Also, she said to
Good
do the
student.
opposite of what you feel and rejoice and be grateful.
Yeah, good. Did she do it? Did she respond?
She said she was going to go. I have to find out tonight.
Okay.
Did she follow through?
All right. That's good. Excellent. Thank you for that. Corey.
I like what you said about forgiveness, that it's a decision and that you keep going over it and over it. Doesn't mean you didn't forgive. It just means
Right.
those feelings come up
Yeah.
and you make the decision again that, yes, I did forgive
Yeah.
and realize that you did actually forgive.
Amen. I love that because forgiveness is a lifestyle, not an event. It's a process. It's something we aim toward and continue to aim our whole lives long. We want to live grace, you know, and sometimes we fall back into old patterns, but we can just, you know, like they tell you when you're working out at the gym, you know, if you can't handle it, you stop, you get your circulation, you take a deep breath, and you jump right back in. That's what
Somebody
you do.
else is going to have to right now. If mine flew.
Oh, okay. She forgot what she was going to say. All right, so what has been meaningful or helpful? Oh, yeah.
Is
It flew
has
back?
this been more closely than usual? Okay. Is this been recorded?
Yeah. Yeah.
YouTube.
I think they put it on their
Yeah, because-
YouTube channel. Yeah.
I want to see it again, and I bet other people do
Okay.
too.
Okay, good. It's on, you guys have a YouTube channel? Is that how that works? Okay. Okay, good to know. All right. And what's that?
And Facebook.
Okay. YouTube and Facebook. All right. One more. What was meaningful? This sister over here. She looks like Judy Garland.
I really enjoyed last night's presentation. I wasn't here, but I watched it online.
Yeah.
Took copious notes. I liked how you,
Yeah.
of all the 7 sins that you mentioned, there's a positive flip side of what we can do
Yes, that's right.
to remedy that.
Yeah.
And also that you mentioned, I'm a firm believer in having an attitude of gratitude
Yes.
and how that can lift your spirits and just change the whole trajectory of your outlook.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Thank you for that. Beautiful. Excellent. Well, you guys are awesome. I'm really thrilled to be here, and we're going to just plow through a couple sessions this afternoon. This first one is honestly kind of hit me hard when I was prepping for it. It's going to be very serious, very somber. It's on suicide prevention. But let's jump into our quiz first, and you just shout out the answers. Okay, anxiety becomes, this is all stuff that I've covered. Anxiety becomes unmanageable when it heightens to the point where it's triggered by the blank of danger rather than its blank. Possibility rather than probability. Very good. True or false, medication can trigger anxiety and depression. Breathing blank and blank can help calm the nerves. Deep and slow. In and out. That is generally the way breathing is done, but that's not what, that's so cute. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine recommends between blank and blank hours, 7 and 9, 7 and 9. Okay, because more than 9 tends to be too much, less than 7 tends to be too little. True or false, diets full of refined animal foods with plenty of sugar have no impact on mood and anxiety. False. We do need to pay attention to our diet because our body is nourished through our food, and that includes our brain. The neurons that mediate empathy are called what kind of neurons? Mirror neurons, correct. Thoughts, blank. Feelings, blank. Thoughts, lead, and feelings what? Excellent. The way we think about an event is called blank blank. What kind of processing? Cognitive processing. We got some good students here. And what was the first step away from God in the garden? Do you remember? Oh, no, I'm wrong. Disconnection, correct. That's true. That's true in the broadest sense. All right, let me go into this talk. This is intense. Let me pray again. Father in heaven, I just want to dedicate this talk to you because I don't know who here might be wrestling with these. I don't know who these dynamics. I don't know who watching it online is wrestling with these dynamics. And I don't know what people that are connected to the people that are watching it online or presently may be wrestling with these dynamics. But there is a ripple effect off of each public address, and I realize that, God, and I want this to ripple to the people that need to hear it so that more people will embrace the wonderful opportunity they have to live. More people will want to live as the result of what I share is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen. This is Kevin Hines when he was just a child. He is a suicide prevention speaker who was one of the only 34 people to survive a jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, whereas 2,000 people roughly have jumped to their death off the Golden Gate Bridge. So let me tell you his story. At 10 years old, Kevin Hines was put on Tegretol for seizures. And then he was taken off at 16 and immediately developed the symptoms of bipolar. Now, whether it was going off the Tegretol that led to that or something involving the medication that could have impacted him, we don't know, but we do know that he started developing the symptoms of bipolar. As a young man, he started to deal with these symptoms. In September of 2000, he took a bus to the Golden Gate Bridge, hearing voices in his head telling him to jump, threw himself over the rail. But he experienced what so many people who attempt suicide experience, and that is immediate regret. What have I done? So he righted his body to where his feet would hit the water first. People who jump into water typically die of internal injuries because the impact on the water is such that it's not as bad as hitting the ground would be, but it is a lot worse than jumping into a pool, let's say. So he righted himself to where he was going to go in feet first, and he did go into the water and began to struggle immediately for his life. And according to him, after he surfaced, a sea lion helped him stay afloat until he was rescued by the Coast Guard. Can you believe that story? But he lived to become a very passionate advocate for not only guardrails and methods of preventing suicide off the Golden Gate Bridge, but generally helping people to cities, municipalities that are in charge of these bridges, for example, create barriers to suicide, because he knew that the majority of people who attempt suicide do so for one of two reasons. One is they're having some kind of mental health episode and they're not in their right mind, which was probably the case with him. He was hearing voices and so forth. Or they've had some kind of experience recently that is so devastating to them that their whole self is overwhelmed by the trauma and they think that suicide is actually an answer. So he knows that the majority of people who attempt fall into one or both of those categories, and it's worth preventing, because the people having an episode will come out of the episode. And the people who are fresh off of a terrible devastation or disappointment will be able to recover from that disappointment in most cases, if they live. But if people end their lives are over and there is no recovery. So his mission is now to provide mental health and suicide prevention information through public speaking. He campaigned for the installation of a safety net around the Golden Gate Bridge, which was completed in 2023. He also advocated for, and they now have hotlines where people who are thinking of jumping can call on the phone. There are various groups. There's a group called the Bridge Watch Angels, a volunteer group who patrol the bridge, and also Hopper's Hands is a group in memory of a man named Ken Hopper, who also patrolled the bridge and rescued people, and they actually trained these people to climb over the rail to be able to talk to people, because I guess they have to go over the rail to be able to jump. So they train them in bravery techniques and so forth, and many of those people have been able to talk people out of jumping. It's an amazing work. I think it's worth it to try to prevent suicide whatever way and in whatever means we can. Here's Kevin. He's written a book called The Art of Being Broken. What a title. That's an excellent book title. And then the subtitle is How Storytelling Saves Lives. And certainly he has saved lives through telling his own story. A very inspiring human being. So I want to just give you what I have on suicide this afternoon. And trigger warning, it's not going to be easy material, but it's going to bring us to the foot of the cross by the end, because that's our hope, guys. It's Jesus. He has given us a reason to live, and I want to instill that sense of hope in the gospel. And so let's jump in here. The overview of what I'm going to be presenting is, number one, we're going to talk a little bit about prevalence, then warning signs, how you know when someone is thinking about suicide, how grieving suicide can be different. It can be complex and different than normal grieving, and then some tools to use in the fight to end suicide. So let's talk about prevalence. This is according to the Center for Disease Control. In 2021, the second leading cause of death for people 10 to 14 and 20 to 34. Can you believe that? The second leading cause of death for people 10 to 14? What? What? This is tragic. The groups with the highest rates include non-Hispanic white people, veterans, rural dwelling people. I have no idea why. I was just looking at the data. People in mining and construction. The mining I can kind of get because they never get sunlight, but construction, I don't know. And then young LGBTQ people, which makes sense because of some of the things bound up in that condition and that situation. I want to talk to you, though, about kind of the beginnings of intuition I have. And I think it's more than an intuition, because I think that if I had enough time to really search this out, I would discover that it's absolutely true and supportable with the data. But that is that the internet has something to do with the increase in suicide, particularly with the increase in suicide for young people, because they're on TikTok, and TikTok is an insane asylum, guys. It is not a healthy thing for the most part. Now, there's ways of using all these apps in good ways, but what our young people are getting through TikTok is really quite devastating. And we're going to see that there are adults in the real world that aren't necessarily religious people that are pushing back against the impact of the internet, particularly on young people. One of those individuals is a brilliant woman named Abigail Schwirzer. Has anybody heard of her? She has written a book called Irreversible Damage, The Transgender Craze Seducing Our Daughters, and she has put up with a lot of pushback, but she has basically chronicled the reality of what's called rapid onset gender dysphoria. And the way she gets here is by looking at historically how what we call gender dysphoria onsets. It typically onsets in childhood, and it's very small numbers of people. It's always been a real thing. There have always been boys that thought they were girls and girls that thought they were boys, and it's a mental health condition we need to be very sensitive to. These are God's children. We need to never make fun of them or persecute them or be hostile toward them in any way. These people are genuinely struggling, and there are adults that struggle with this, and adults that choose to transition. These things are realities in our world today. But what Abigail Schwirzer noticed was that more and more young people, and particularly girls, were experiencing gender dysphoria. If you look at the graphs, it will look like kind of like this on the bottom, and that will be the onset in childhood, the classic presentation of gender dysphoria. And then you look at the males that are now onsetting in the teen years, and it goes like starting in 2000, it goes low, 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 and then all of a sudden it bumps up real high, right around the time that smartphones became universal for kids, okay? So it goes like this, and then all of a sudden, boom, it goes like that. And then if you look at girls, it's low, 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 and right around smartphone time, the girls go up like this. So even further than the guys. So she's documenting this. She's talking very, very capably about this issue, and we need to wrestle with this. Here's Lisa Littman. Abigail Schwirzer reports about her in her book. She did research with 256 parent reports, and she was researching in particular trans females. 65%, and this is very recent, but 65% of those young girls in the teen years onsetting gender dysphoria, 65% came, quote, out of the blue, meaning they had shown no signs of this when they were younger. In other words, it's this rapid onset gender dysphoria that we're seeing. And typically that followed social media immersion. Do you start to see the picture here? People get immersed in these social media communities, and they're convinced that the source of all their problems is that they are a boy trapped in a girl's body or the other way around. And that if they could just pursue this medical transition, it'll solve all their problems. Friends, this is more than just a moral issue. This is more than just picking on gay people or picking on trans people. I don't believe in doing that. Give people a wide berth, let them make their own choices. But this is children. There's a line that's been crossed here where children are being ushered through a medical process. And what is said to the parents who are up in arms, you know, my girl suddenly thinks she's a boy, what's happening? And then your doctor wants to put her on male hormones, and then, you know, sometimes just basically mutilate their bodies. I don't mean to be, you know, sensational here, but this is what's happening. And the parents are shocked, and they're like, can't we do something else? Because traditionally, what we have always done with the gender dysphoria is called watchful waiting. It was the accepted normal treatment for gender dysphoria, watchful waiting, typically, you know, working with the child, loving the child, coming alongside the child, not trying to radically change them to their assigned sex, but also not accommodating their imagined sex. You're coming alongside them, you're watchfully waiting, and 85% of kids that experience this transition out of it. Many of them end up gay, but they end up coming out of it wanting to be their biological sex. That was the accepted approach to gender dysphoria until all of this internet stuff and these new approaches that have come into the mental health world, which I am not proud of as a mental health provider, and I'll tell you that much. So this is all happening very quickly right in front of us. And I feel that we should stand up and say, no, you can't do this to teenagers whose brains aren't even baked yet. This is a human rights issue. This is wrong to do this. So we're gonna, speak out about this. But these girls that experienced out of the blue trans kind of feelings were also not only in social media immersion, but they were sharply clustered into friend groups. So there was something going on within the friend group that was reinforcing this thinking. For these reasons, many individuals that are observing this all happen in real time before our eyes are saying it is a pure contagion, a social contagion. Yeah. There's a guy named Jonathan Haidt, I think is the way you say his name, and he's amazing. I don't even think he's particularly religious, but he's the hero of a lot of religious people, because what he has done is documented what cell phones are doing to kids. And he's saying we need to give childhood back to our children. Screen-based childhoods are not working out well for kids. We're so concerned about physical safety. We put helmets on them and knee pads and elbow pads and every physical precaution that could be taken is taken. And parents are like beside themselves worrying that their child's gonna become physically injured. But then you sit them in front of a screen where the whole world with all of its evil is literally poured into their minds. This is not safe. And he has noticed this. So he has written a couple of books, The Anxious Generation, which deals with the spike in anxiety among young people, and The Coddling of the American Mind, this resistance we have now to anything that is, quote, unsafe. What we did was we took our kids off of their bikes and out of the trees they were climbing and out of the neighborhood, telling them that there's so many people out there that are going to abduct them and they're going to end up on a milk carton, that they need to be afraid and stay home. And what do you do with a kid that's locked in their house? Park them in front of a screen somewhere, right? So what he's saying is take the screen away, because this is worse. Yes, occasionally kids get kidnapped. Yes, they fall off their bike and sometimes break bones. Yes, they can fall out of a tree and, God forbid, occasionally these things happen. But the net negative of putting them in front of a screen is so much worse than the net negative of the physical danger they would be in just being kids. Give them back their childhood. Take away their phone, is what he's saying. So he has linked phone use and mental health issues in children, and now the majority of US schools have phone restrictions. And many parents are saying, no, you're not getting a phone until you're like in high school or even in college. So thank God for Jonathan Haidt, I think is the way you say his name. Look up these people, read their books. They are talking sense to our culture. So that is, I think, kind of a rabbit trail and kind of a detour I took just now. But I do believe that the suicidality in young people is related to the internet and is probably not helped by it. So let's talk about prevention. How do we prevent suicidality? This is, again, the Centers for Disease Control. Number one, you want to strengthen economic supports, and there's no better place to do that than the church. The church helps people. We're not handouts, but, I just had this experience where I was preaching in a church in Roseburg, Oregon. This particular church campus had a huge influx of homeless people that were basically camped out on their church yard. They were bringing a trailer in and selling drugs out of the trailer. There was excrement and needles all over the campus of this church. It was terrible. So they went and cleaned everything up, locked up the gates, put lights in the parking lot at night, basically got rid of all the homeless people, but they also went to the homeless people. Because Roseburg, Oregon is apparently like a homeless capital. They ship them up from San Francisco. There's a book called San Francisco, or Sicko. They have a bus that goes up the coast and they drop them off in Roseburg, Oregon. So there's a huge homelessness problem. So what this church did was they reached out to that community, because those are God's children too, and he loves them. And they worked with them. And they started book clubs or like Bible studies in different people's homes. I think they had 5 different small groups going. same night of the week in one home. Monday is here, Tuesdays at Sally's, Wednesdays at Jeannie's, you know, and so forth. And these homeless people started attending these small groups. Now, small groups are where it's at if you really want to win souls. You can't just come with a big assembly and everybody watches the speaker and everybody goes home. You have to have small groups where people can actually get to know people. Because what happens when you actually get to know people is you hear that this homeless guy that's coming every week needs a car. And you also have a friend over here that has a car for $400. And it's running well. It's an old car, but it's still running well. And so you say to the homeless guy, you know, maybe we could raise some money. We know you don't have any money, but could you pay us back? Eventually you start negotiating. And then you hear that there's a need for, people need to flip burgers over here at the whatever, McDonald's, and there's a job opening. And you hear about that, and you know the manager, and then he hires the home. Fully four people I met at this church in the short time I was there had gotten off the streets and had jobs and cars and homes. This was a miracle if there was one, but there were four. And I think there's probably a lot more than the people I met. Do you hear what I'm saying here? This is how we help people, through human connection. This is how they are helped. And that's how you strengthen economic supports, not through handouts so much, because people that get handouts that are hooked on drugs, what are they going to do with it? They're going to go ahead and snuff it up their nose, you know? So you have to help them intelligently. But that's exactly what was going on here, and people were getting help. You want to create protective environments for people. You want to improve access and delivery of suicide care. There needs to be ways that you can talk to someone who knows how to help people that are in this frame of mind. You need to promote healthy connections. There is nothing like the family of God for providing connection between human beings. There's nothing. I like to say, because of how important human connection is to mental health, I like to say that the church is a mental health institution. But not in the way you think, in all the good ways. It's a way we can connect with one another in ways that are life-giving. And so there's nothing better than church for healthy connections. But there are other ways you can connect. You can go to book clubs, you can go to interest groups, you know. Some people are into hiking, some people are into biking. You can find, what is it called, Meetup. There's a website called Meetup. There's, what are some of the other friendship websites? Oh, I can't remember. My daughter goes on them. Anyway, there are websites you can go to connect with people, but there's nothing quite like church. Then teaching coping and problem-solving skills. When I was going through depression, I would have storms of suicidal thoughts. I never really purposed to die, but I would feel like that was a good answer for me, and it wasn't. If I had known some problem solving and coping skills, I wouldn't have had to deal with that. Identify and support people at risk and intervene and prevent future risk. That is from the CDC. Okay, so let's look at some warning signs. This is from the National Institutes of Mental Health. And they talk about ways that we can know if someone is struggling with suicidality. They're talking. Believe people. Listen to what they say. If they talk about wanting to die, they might really want to die on some level. They may have great guilt or shame. They may talk about being a burden to others. There can be a certain emotional constellation in someone who's struggling with suicidality, such as feeling empty, hopeless, trapped, or having no reason to live. Being extremely sad, more anxious or agitated or full of rage than usual, and then just having unbearable emotional and or physical pain. And chronic physical pain is a very, very common cause of suicidality because people are just at their wits' end trying to cope. You can sometimes notice changes in behavior, making a plan or researching ways to die. This is one way in which the internet has served suicide because people can find ways of taking their life online, unfortunately. Withdrawing from friends, saying goodbye to people, giving away important items. Pay attention to these things. Making a will, taking dangerous risks such as driving extremely fast, displaying extreme mood swings, eating or sleeping more or less than you usually do, using drugs or alcohol more often, and then unexplainable happiness. I have a friend whose brother took his life, and I've known the kid since he was a little boy, and it was shocking to me to hear this, but she said that he actually cheered up before he suicided. And a lot of times this happens because the individual's like, okay, all my problems are going away. And so they feel a sense of lightness. The grief of individuals who have lost loved ones to suicide is different than typical grief. For one thing, there's stigmatization. Human beings love to find someone to, what am I going to say? Blame. We rush to blame. It's called rushing to judgment. And it's one of the habits that we start to refute, we start to change when we decide to live more like Jesus wants us to live. Because we learn with time and wisdom that there's so much we don't know about individual situations. It's very, very dangerous to judge prematurely when you don't have all the facts. And so people whose loved ones have taken their lives have often had a long and difficult struggle. We don't know all the details, so it's really good not to judge. Nevertheless, people won't talk about it because they feel like people will blame them. Suicide can be related to mental health conditions, chronic pain, again, physical disability, negative life events, drugs or alcohol, bullying. People are bullied. I've been bullied. I know how that feels. It's really hard to live with. A previous attempt will increase the danger of suicide, and then exposure to suicidal behavior in others is a big causative factor. This is why it's not in the greatest interest of the general public to publish suicides, particularly of admired celebrities, because there's all these copycat suicides that sometimes follow in their train. People who have lost someone to suicide are going to have sadness and depression typically. They're going to stop enjoying things that they would normally enjoy. They're going to want to isolate. They're going to have changes in their eating and sleeping patterns. They're going to feel guilty. They're going to feel like they could have done something. And then they're sometimes going to have a sense of relief and then feel guilty again. So how do you help them? Well, let me give you a couple resources. One is a very interesting and wonderful ministry called comfortfortheday.com. Do you guys know Karen Nicola? She's actually from here in California. Do you know her? She works, I think, with Dr. Nedley. They have a very good ministry. She's spoken recently for our Zoom Bible study. She lost a child to a disease when the child was just very young, and it was a devastating experience, as you can imagine, for a young mother. But she made lemon out of lemonade and went on and developed this wonderful grief ministry. So they may be of help there. And then Abide Network has over 40 trained mental health coaches on our panel, and we can match you with a coach, and you can get that support that you need through a tough time. Be honest with people who have been through something like this. Don't be afraid to talk about it. And this is also for people who have lost someone through suicide. You have to take care of yourself. Eat and sleep even if you don't feel like it. Anniversaries will be very difficult, but allow for those sad feelings, and it can be helpful to have grieving rituals where you actually formalize the grieving process in some way. Maybe you go down to the lake and you write a letter to the person you've lost, and then you burn it and scatter the ashes, or something like that can help formalize the process of grieving. All right, I want to give you a couple of really practical tools and then tell you a few stories, and then we'll be done. So here's the practical tool that I use to talk honestly with a person who I suspect is dealing with suicidality. Whether it be just thoughts of suicide or actual intention to take their lives, I want to know. It's very important for me to know that. So I will use this acronym, TIP MAP. Think of it as tipping the map of that person's life in a better direction. And what I want you to notice about this acronym is the internal ones, intention, plan, method, and access, are the ones that indicate active suicidality. What I mean by active suicidality is the person could actually take their life, and you need to pay attention and put the right actions in place for them to save their life. Okay, so you start with thoughts. You just ask the person, have you ever thought, you could say it if you want to say it in a softer way, you can say, have you ever thought of harming yourself? Or have you ever thought of taking your life? Or, have you ever thought that you wanted to end it all? You can find a tactful way of saying it, but you want to ask them if they've ever thought about it. I have found that when people are significantly depressed, a good percentage of them, even Christians, have thought about it. But make note that thinking about it is not active suicidality, because you could create drama that you really don't need to create if you call 911 or something because someone is thinking about it, because thinking is quite common. Does this make sense? And thinking does not indicate intentionality. Does this make sense so far? But the second question, and now you're getting into the middle of the sandwich here, the second question is, do you intend to harm yourself? Do you intend to end it all? Do you intend to take your life? That's a hard question to ask someone. But if they say yes to thoughts, you have to proceed to that question. Sometimes they'll volunteer. You say, have you ever thought about taking your life? And they'll say, I've thought about it, but I would never do it. Okay, they've already answered the question. And so you can end it there. You don't have to continue. You maybe want to check in and say, so you have no intention of acting on those thoughts. Did I get that correct? And they say, no, you don't have to go any further. No reason to create drama. But then you can say to them, look, I'm here for you. If you do get to that point, I want to know about it. And let's get you some help so you don't even think about this anymore. So if they say, yes, they have an intention, then you have to ask the next questions. Do you have a plan? An actual way that you're going to do this? And then method is related to the plan. And then do you have access to the method? So if they say, yeah, I'm gonna use a gun. Well, if they don't have a gun, then they don't have access to their method, right? So that gives you a little more time to negotiate. So you want to get those details: intention, plan, method, and access. And by the way, guys, I talk about mental health everywhere I go, and I'm very glib, and I just go on and on and on. I realize this is heavy. When I was prepping this, I was shedding tears the whole time. So I want you to know I really feel this, and I know it's a heavy topic. She asked me to speak on this. I'm not sure exactly why, but I'm here because God has led me here to talk about this particular thing. But I want you to know I may be up here rattling on about it, but I know it's serious, okay? All right, so those middle factors, intention, plan, method, and access, are very important. And then also you want to follow up with, do you have a prior history? Have you ever tried this before? Because if the person has tried it before, chances are they're more likely to try it again. So that's your acronym. That's how you talk through, or at least what I use to talk through this kind of difficult situation. And you can use other approaches, other acronyms, but I use it because I can remember very easily if something is in acronym form. All right, so what do you do if you do indeed have an actively suicidal person sitting in front of you? There's a series of steps, and I would say that these are somewhat flexible, but they're fairly predictable at the same time. So what I would do is Google, it's amazing how that's become a verb, mental health crisis and the town where the person is located. So maybe you're on the phone with the person, they're all the way across the country. You find out that they're actively suicidal. You can find a local unit that will help them. So you find a place where they can go that will help them through that rough period. It should be either a hospital or sometimes a standalone mental health facility, okay? Then you ask the person to admit themselves. As much as possible, you want that person to act on their own volition. It's really tricky with suicide because you have to prevent the murder, even if it's self-murder. You have to prevent it the best you can. But on the other hand, this person has a free will, and the reality is people can take their own life. So it's a really hard balance to strike. You want to use as little force, as little pressure as possible. So ask the person to admit themselves and offer to accompany them to the place. Now, if you're not physically with them in the town where this place is, tell them you'll stay on the phone while they go there and walk them through that and be their support person. Am I making sense so far? Okay, good. If they will not cooperate with that, then you call 988, which is the homicide suicide hotline now, okay? And if you call 911, they'll just route you through to 988, but you can call it directly. They will do a welfare check. They will come to the premises of the person and talk to them. And it's very interesting to me, human psychology in response to one of those welfare checks tends to be quite predictable that people stabilize. And they stabilize, interestingly enough, in the face of someone who comes in a capacity of authority, police person, because it's 988, you know, these are cops. And they come in their uniform typically, but they also come in a capacity of compassion and care. And the combination of authority and power and compassion and care is very stabilizing to people, and that's exactly what God is. You know, he's not just a nice yo dude, you know, he's not just a dog that you can pet. He's the God of the universe. He's the sovereign, the potentate of time, the hymns call him. He's an all-powerful God, but he also comes in a capacity of love and compassion toward us. And I think what happens to those suicidal people that have this guy come in or girl come in doing a welfare check is they get a little glimpse of God. He's powerful, but he's also love. And it stabilizes them, because very often the welfare check will result in that person saying, okay, I'm fine, I'm not going to do this. And they're stable. But if the person doing the welfare check, this trained individual, sees them as still at risk, they will take them in and admit them. It's called an involuntary admission. In Florida, it can be the Baker Act. You know, it's different things in different states, but basically you make the person attend some kind of mental health facility. By the way, if it's a homicidal person, and that's really not our topic today, but God forbid that you should be in a homicidal situation, you do call 988, but you don't let the person know you're calling 988, and you very discreetly indicate what's going on, and hopefully they'll get there in time to help you. All right, so I realize this is very heavy. Let's process a little bit, and then I'll tell a couple of stories to close out. But tell me any questions you have. Okay, yeah. She's going to rush over to you, sorry.
For the involuntary admittance, is that the same as a 5150?
I think, is that in the state of California?
I believe so, yeah.
Probably. What, do you know? Yeah. It's a 5150 is an involuntary admission. It's like Baker Act in Florida. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And you can do that. You know, I once posted this on social media. I don't remember where it was, maybe Instagram. I got so many people yelling at me, furious, because they were like, you can't save people that don't want to be saved. They felt like, I guess these are the days of assisted suicide and all this. I guess they felt like you just need to let that person kill themselves, but I don't see it that way, because they're typically having a mental health break and they're going to thank you later. And I've had that experience, by the way, with a client who indicated suicidality. I couldn't get in touch with her. I ended up calling the police. The police met her in the parking lot of her workplace. She was furious at me. They, you know, apparently they cuffed her. It was really interesting, but she was very mad at me for it. Then thanked me later, which is often how it goes.
So I had a patient that had just lost his wife like 4 weeks earlier and was not well, and so he was making threats of ending his life.
Yeah.
And like, what's the use? And no, I'm going to be found dead, so there's no reason for you to make any follow-up appointment with me, and blah, blah, blah.
Oh.
So I kept him on my desk phone and used my work phone to call actually called 911 dispatch. This is in Tulare County. And they said, oh, we need to send you to the mental health line. And I was like, oh, this was new, because I've dealt with Tulare County a lot, so this was a new system they had. So then they passed me on to the mental health group, and they asked me some questions. They said, well, we can't go out there. And I said, but I'm kind of, I just want a welfare check on him, you know. And they said, no, He has to contact us.
Really?
Yeah, and so
This
I
was
was
the
like,
988?
okay, yeah, no, this wasn't 988. This
Oh.
was actually Tulare County's mental health crisis line.
Well, that's true.
So
The center itself won't
No,
contact.
the center itself wouldn't, but,
Yeah.
but this is the process has been for Tulare County. So then I called back to the police department. I said, okay, tell me what's going on here.
Yeah,
Because this is a change in practice from what we've been experiencing with Tulare County. So he explained to me that in Las Vegas, there was a lawsuit because the police went in and stopped somebody from killing themselves, and the guy took them to court and won. And so in Las
That's
Vegas,
bad.
the determination was that a person has the right to take their life. So Tulare County is
I
saying,
guess
we're not gonna get involved unless the person actually calls for help. And I actually had to communicate that to our suicide prevention team because our team is the national team with the VA, and they were shocked to hear that
Yeah.
that was happening.
That's pathetic, I think. I think it's wrong. People are not in their right mind. You have to be honest about that's wrong. But yeah, this is the age we're in. People can choose. Yeah. Anyway. Anyone else? Yeah.
How does cutting fit in?
Cutting is a habit that people develop that actually releases when you typically cutting is just the surface of the skin. It's not intended to cause the person to die, but it inflicts a certain amount of pain, and that produces certain endorphins in the body that have a soporific or calming effect. It's effectively, you get addicted to those chemicals that you produce yourself by cutting your body. Because your body puts out all these analgesics in your system, naturally occurring analgesics, to calm down that pain. And those things have the same effect in some ways as medications do. So people literally become addicted to it. I wouldn't say that cutting is necessarily indicative of suicide, but it's definitely an addiction that needs to be treated, and that person needs help. And it's a step in that direction of self-destruction. Yeah, really sad. Anyone else?
The quick follow-up is, why do people cut?
Well, I think for the most part, it's that they're experiencing such intense emotional pain that the physical cutting distracts from the emotional pain. Or sometimes people feel emotionally numb and they're trying to help themselves feel again. Typically, it happens with, for the most part, young females. I haven't done a lot of research on cutting, but that's, in my understanding, where the majority of the cutting comes from. And typically they're having significant self-esteem issues because they're young, pubescent, their bodies are developing. It's terrible, the perfect storm of factors with young women. For one thing, they have these celebrities flashed in front of them that have had surgeries and Ozempic, and they're skinny as rails, and the girls' bodies start to blossom and they get fat where they never had fat, and they're freaking out about that. And then, so not only do they have this unrealistic standard of thinness, but then they have food everywhere in our world. And then they also have a lot of messages that they're getting online and in other places that tell them they're not good enough unless they look just so. And a lot of girls just cave, even the beautiful ones cave under the pressure of that and feel such low self-esteem. They're never gonna amount to anything because they haven't developed themselves, their individuality yet. So they don't have that to take, to build themselves up through. And then a lot of times things happen with peers. Bullying can happen, various dynamics with their peer groups, and it can set them up for just having a lot of depression. So I think that they're trying to treat depression using their own
The other
means.
end of that is
And what?
the other end of that, it's often around sexual abuse.
Yes, correct. So if there's sexual abuse history, it's going to weaken them to that type of thing as well. Very good point. Thank you for that. Anyone else? All right, so I want to close out here with just a couple of stories One is an individual who was a very close loved one of mine. I'm not going to tell you who, but very, very close relationship. And the individual during her teens went through a period where she was really struggling and turned to drugs and the world, basically, to try to cope with some disappointment and some trauma that came as the result of a move and a loss of a peer circle. So the individual was dealing with loneliness and some separation anxiety and different things, and turned to these things to try to help them cope, and really got on a very self-destructive path, and ended up with a lot of habits and a lot of choices that were in and of themselves kind of suicidal, you could say, but in addition started to drop hints that maybe they didn't want to live anymore. And so this all kind of culminated into a situation where we felt like we needed to talk to this individual, and I did. And I went to the individual, and eyeball to eyeball, I had a conversation with them I will never forget. Because I said, look, I can see that you're on this path of self-destruction. And you have made comments about not wanting to live. And I just want to ask you to live. And the person said, I don't want to be religious. I don't want to believe in God. I don't want to, do all the things that I have been told I'm supposed to do. And I said, okay, I'm not asking for those things right now. You don't, as far as I'm concerned, have to worry about those things right now. Don't worry about what you're doing or not. Just think about living. All I'm asking is for you to live. Just please live through this very difficult time in your life. That's all I'm asking of you. Just live through it. And the person was pushing back. And I said, listen, I love you, and I would have to carry on if you ended your life. I would have to carry on. But I don't know how I would. It would devastate me. And the person said to me, I won't be here to see it. And I looked at them and I said, really? I think I said something pretty pointed, like, you're that cold? Really? I don't believe you. You really don't care? And then I asked again. I said, will you just do this one thing? I believe you love me. I believe you care about your loved ones and the legacy you'd leave them with, the baggage you'd leave them with if you ended your life. I believe you care about that, even though you're trying to make it seem like you don't. Will you please live? That's all I'm asking. Just live. And the person finally said, okay, I'll live. Have the conversations. I didn't know that one was going to end the way it did, but it did, and I'm so grateful that it did. And the person lived, and they're flourishing and thriving, very close to their loved ones and their family, very close to me. It turned out as good as it possibly can. But it was scary for a while. Then a little later, I was in my counseling practice and I had a client. The client did not plan on suicide, wasn't thinking of attempting suicide, but would pray regularly because they were so depressed that God would take their life. And then we worked together for just a little bit, and I said, I think you may be negatively biased and focused right now. Why don't you tell me what you're grateful for? And she started to practice gratitude, and it got her out of the depression. And the next time I called her, she was like, it's like a miracle. Like, my whole mind has been changed, and I'm grateful now, and I want to live. So the third story is me. And I've mentioned this before, but during that period of depression, I would have these storms of suicidal thoughts. And I had medications, because I was part of the reason for my depression was I was having health issues and had several surgeries and was given medication for the surgeries and so forth. And so I had the means and all that. And I would have these storms where the enemy would come and just tell me it wasn't worth trying anymore. And I had not learned the tools that I know now that help me to regulate my emotions and so forth, and I didn't have the support network I have now. So I would kind of cave under the pressure of that. But by the grace of God, I came out of that. I was really down. I was clinically depressed, and I'll tell you, I have more reasons to be depressed now because I'm getting old and my body is starting to break down and I'm not looking so good as I used to look, and I used to sing and I can't sing anymore, and so there's a lot of significant disappointments in my life. I'm happy. So praise the Lord, I've been delivered from depression. I want to end with this poem, though, that I wrote about my experience and the secondary experience with these people. The world is calm this drizzling night. I had just had a session with this girl, and I was thinking afterward. The world is calm this drizzling night. The cold, it chills, but does not bite. With most asleep, some harsh realities keep me awake. I spoke to someone earlier who asked, "What purpose do I serve?" and didn't want the precious life I begged her not to take. Suicide, just not an option. Suicide, just not a friend. Just not a good solution for the emptiness within. The lovelessness will melt away. In time, the ice will give. I'm only asking one thing, dear one. Live. One feared the fires of hell so much she had not considered pills or such, but every day she begged the Lord to take her life away. He didn't grant her prayer at all. She left his portrait on the wall, and one fine day she realized she'd really rather stay. Suicide, just not an option. Suicide, just not a goal. Just not the way to find relief from all that aches the soul. God knows you have your limits, and in time the pain will give. I'm only asking one thing, dear one. Live. I think of those who lose their faith. No heaven, hell, or other place seems real to hearts who close the door to Jesus crucified. But God, not far from any man, nor woman lost or lonely, can evade the stark reality that life already died. Suicide, just not your story. Suicide, just not your thing. It only transfers, never really takes away the sting. It's not that life is perfect, no, that he won't forgive, but still I'm asking one thing, dear one. Live.